Welcome to a football show Thursday edition. That is Nick Suss of the Tennessean. I am Braden Gall. We are brought to you by Sinkers Beverages and almost Michelin star restaurant, Shotgun Willie's Barbecue.
Almost.
Almost. Which is still pretty cool. Congratulations to Shotgun Willie's. Open 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. Wednesday through Sunday, which is today. And of course, Sinkers Beverages, where I'm learning to become a fan of wine, which is probably dangerous and bad, but like I'm enjoying it. I go to Spain one time and now I'm a wine expert. Nick, good morning, sir. How are you?
Good. I was at Sinkers Beverages over the weekend for our Halloween party. It was a nice little trip.
What did you pick up? Do tell.
About 6 or 7 different things. So I don't remember all of them, but it was
6 or 7 things.
Yeah. Oh, that was an accident. Once again, total accident. But yeah,
it's made its way to young unparenting. What are you? You're not a millennial. What are you? Gen Z? What are you?
I'm a millennial.
You're a millennial? Okay. Younger millennials, which I think are really different millennials.
My age starts with a 3. I am a millennial.
I'm a geriatric millennial. Good to see all of you guys. Smeagol, Coach Wills, Kenneth, Eddie, already in the comment section. So if you want to ask questions, we've got a very pedantic and semantic episode, which are my favorite, with you, Nick Suss, because we get to talk about all the things that are very difficult to articulate, as Mike Borgonzi said, which is
Correct.
What exactly is the Tennessee Titans culture? Do we buy the reporting around the rumors between New England and the Patriots and the Titans' desire to not trade with New England and Mike Vrabel? Jeffery Simmons, what does a cornerstone actually mean and look like? Great article by you. I enjoyed reading that. Player development. We've got an interesting, here's the 2 people that are in charge of player development, which I find interesting. And Mike Borgonzi, of course, rebuilding trust with the organization and the fans right away. We do have yet another coaching opening in the SEC, and the playoff rankings are out. So maybe we'll have a little fun at the end here with a little college football as well. So did I get everything in there? Oh, coaching search. Duh. That thing.
the looming issue that will define the next 3 to 5 years of Titans football.
I don't want to talk about the details right now, though, Nick. So here we go. The Suss Bomb is back for another week of Titans therapy, says Eddie. It finally feels like a grown-up is in charge. The Titans' depression will continue until winning football games happen. That's the interesting point. So let's start there. If you missed it, here was not all of it, but Mike Borgonzi began with about, like a 3-minute maybe-ish, almost 5 minutes.
I think it was 4.5-minute opening statement, yeah.
Opening statement, and I think clearly with an objective of sort of owning it all and trying to begin to rebuild the trust. Here was a bit of that.
And right now, the results aren't good enough right now, and we understand that. And we understand the frustration, with the fan base. And we know that we have to earn back the trust of this fan base. One of the things that was, really appealing to me when I took this job was the passion that this fan base has. Coming in here as an opposing team, you could feel that passion, that it meant something to the community, and to families here. And I always said, if I'm going to go somewhere, I want to make it impactful. And, it's great to be in a place where people care about the team. And I've been here, close to a year now. I have young kids that are in school. And I've got to meet a lot of people in the community. And I feel their passion and I feel their frustration right now. And but we are doing everything possible right now to get this right and to fix it. And we will. I believe we will at the end.
All right. So a lot of campaigning, a lot of politicking in that answer, but I think it's the right tone. I think it was the right tone to strike. I think Mike Borgonzi did an excellent job of trying to articulate some things that few people have articulated over the years, whether it's, Vrabel, Rand Carthon, Chad Brinker, Amy Adams-Strunk not speaking, etc. I thought he kind of gave us more insight than we've seen in a little while. But he also, a lot of that in there is fluff, I'm in a place where the fans care about the team. Like in an NFL city, no way. And so ironically, in a city that, is very fickle and is very fair weather with all of its sports, for the record. So I think there's lots of campaigning and politicking in that opening statement, but I also thought it was the exact right tone to strike with the fan base to try to begin to tell folks, hey, look, adults are in charge. We got this. We understand it's not good enough. You fall on the sword, you own it, and then you talk about let's look at the things that we think we can fix, and what are we doing to make it better.
Yeah, somebody made the adult in the room comment, and you just brought it up too. That was my first impression leaving the press conference, and I've been thinking a lot about the concept of who's the grown up in the room over the last 12 days or so, because to take people back in memory lane, that was the tone that was used about the Brian Kelly hire in Baton Rouge, was the finally LSU has a grown-up in the room after all these years of Les Miles and Ed Orgeron. We have somebody,
all these years of winning championships.
We have somebody who's going to have the maturity to run this like a business type thing. And obviously that did not work in Baton Rouge, but you can feel it. You can sense it when there is a shift from the infighting and the palace intrigue and the power struggle and all the stuff you want to call it, to a guy who just comes out and very blatantly says stuff like that. Because here's the way that I can tell tone matters. The line, "This clearly isn't good enough. We are not where we want to be," all that stuff. Brinker has said that on the record no fewer than half a dozen times.
Yeah.
And Burke Nihill has said that on the record no fewer than half a dozen times.
Brian
And
Callahan said it every game.
they have no fear being like, oh, do you want me to say this hasn't been good enough? I'll look you in the eyes and say this hasn't been good enough. They're all saying it. But Borgonzi's the first one that said it, and people were like, huh, yeah. So it's a tone thing. It didn't feel defensive. It felt like a guy coming out and pretty directly saying, this is not what we're trying to be. And I liked, to skip forward just a little bit, I liked the use of standard instead of culture. I think
I agree with that.
He talked about culture, and they're always going to talk about culture, but I think standard is probably a better word for, what do we have here? There we go.
Creative standard right
Yeah.
there. That's one of the ones I wrote down, because how do we define that? And I know you got the first couple of questions, so you took us down that journey, but that is jumping ahead. So.
Yeah. So we don't have to do it, but I that's kind of what, when people talk about, oh, we want to have the right culture, that feels somewhat undefinable. Standard feels a little bit more definable.
I did not expect to call on my parenting, but parenting is very much about setting an expectation, being consistent with that expectation, and how you evaluate the expectation. And I think that's sort of what a standard is. Mm-hmm. So we'll get into a little bit of that, because I do want to. Adam is already bringing this up. I honestly like Borgonzi so much, but I dislike Brinker the same amount. If there's collaboration, there is no accountability, period. Got to get Brinker the stinker out of there. So this, I know Stillman asked about this. I know you went on Stillman's show and debated this. I know PK has written about it. I know we've talked about it. Like like we've kind of covered all of this. And PK tweeted this out, and I'm kind of curious about your response too. He says, standards for press conferences for Titans is low, but Borgonzi was articulate and authoritative about important matters. Further shows me that he's the best football person in the building, should be the lead decision maker on the coach. So let's get into that part of this, which is sort of quickly here, reiterating the fact that Mike Borgonzi, the general manager of the Titans, is in fact the general manager of the Titans.
Yeah.
That Chad Brinker does a lot of other things, and sure, he might have veto power or final say over major issues. He probably has to be on board with it. But I thought Borgonzi, and I guess this part I will jump ahead with and bring the coaching search to the top of the show here, which is that he very explicitly said, I don't want to talk about this, and then mentioned two things, which is that this guy has to be a great leader. Doesn't matter if it's offense, defense, whatever, has to be a great leader. And that number two, has to work with the general manager on a day-to-day basis. And that's not working with Chad Brinker on a day-to-day basis. That's working with Mike Borgonzi on a day-to-day basis. So let's jump into do we trust Mike Borgonzi to be the lead decision maker on this extraordinarily important decision? And do you believe that he will get to be the decision maker on this incredibly important decision?
I'll start off by couching, because that's my nature, but you find me a team in the NFL where one person unilaterally gets to pick the head coach, and you have found me a unicorn, Bigfoot, Yeti organization. Like, that's not happening. There is no place where the GM picks the coach and there are no checks and balances.
You think Dallas might be the only one?
Dallas is
Might be the only
potentially an exception,
where
but
the
even
owner
then,
makes trades.
but even then, there are two Joneses that they probably do work together. So any people who are frustrated that Borgonzi and Brinker have each other as sounding boards, guys, calm down. No, that's just silly. Do I have confidence that Borgonzi will be a key decision maker? Yes. Do I have confidence that Borgonzi will get to guide the direction of the search insofar as him and Brinker will both do that? Yes. Do I think that Brinker is going to step back and say, Mike, this one's on you? No. Do I think Borgonzi should want that? Absolutely not.
No.
Given this team's reputation over the last few years, the last thing you want to do is rubber stamp a decision and say, this was exclusively mine.
Right.
Because everybody gets fired. So do you want to say, I did this and take all the blame? I don't know. It's going to be a process, and people can read into the two comments that Borgonzi said and try and forecast, this is the kind of coach who fits that profile, this or that. I think that when you talk about, I want somebody I can get along with, that doesn't mean somebody who I already get along with.
It also doesn't have to be someone that I am friends with or close with.
Yeah.
It is just somebody I have to work with, because I don't want that. And I don't think this is what he meant by that. I don't want someone to be full on like Nepo baby hire, the way like the Predators are doing things, where it's like, oh, I hired my buddy to do this, which is unfortunately at high levels of college football and the NFL, a lot of the times you hire the guy you know, because you know like he's X or he's Y. And I don't want that. I want them to cast a wide net, to do their diligence on every candidate and pick the best guy for the job. And if that means I have to change my approach to that day-to-day relationship because he's the best guy for the job, that is what an adult does in an adult working relationship. Yeah. And I hope that is what Mike Borgonzi is talking about here. Jason says, of course, it's a collective decision, but dear God, I hope there's a clear and obvious smartest guy in the room, and I hope that guy has the authority. Right now, look, is Amy Adams Strunk going to have to sign off on this? Probably.
Absolutely.
We can talk in hypotheticals here and say, do I want Amy Adams Strunk and Burke Nihill and Bryce Wasserman and all these guys having final say? Absolutely not. And if they do, if Amy Adams Strunk vetoes a Mike Borgonzi hire or choice because Bryce Wasserman or Burke Nihill say we don't want that person, then we got a major problem. We'll never know that, but that is a major problem. So right now, the person I think I trust the most with the most football knowledge and the most football, I don't want to say resume, but maybe the fewest mistakes in the Titans wheelhouse is now also the guy that has the most say in leading the search, which is Mike Borgonzi. And I think that is a good place to be if you're a Titans fan, in theory, or maybe the best possible place you could be in this really awful situation.
Yeah, I don't know. I continue to be baffled by the belief among some portions of the fan base that fewer people will make things better. And maybe this is just my new wave, young millennial attitude about collaboration and how more ideas and diversity of ideas make things better.
Diversity of thought.
Maybe I am the fool here. But this idea that giving one person absolute power and saying, you're Paul Brown, you run the entire business, doesn't seem to work when other teams are built like think tanks. When the successful teams have 7 or 8 decision makers all working together, there's a reason nobody's ever been like, oh man, Brett Veach, he's the mastermind of this Chiefs operate. Like, he's in charge, but Andy Reid's in charge and Patrick Mahomes is there. And they've got a lot of people who make a lot of decisions. And you guys all seem to think that Mike Borgonzi is this genius who's a perfect football decision maker. He was there. He was part of it. It was a group. It's a group effort.
About 6-7 of them.
Yeah. So I don't want to like sit here and say, oh, there is nobody capable of being a one-man band. Obviously, we saw Bill Belichick was really good at being a one-man band for a really, really long time. But that is such an anomaly given everything else that's happened in modern football. I don't want to see a pure one CEO in charge situation.
I think generally nobody is that talented, first of all. But like, again, this is Adam's kind of saying a lot of this stuff, which is Brinker doesn't have our staff picks of course the staff picks a coach, but Brinker's position doesn't seem to have defined tasks. And I want to ask Adam, what do you do you not know what his defined tasks are? He has lots of defined tasks. None of them have been really anything to do with signing free agents, drafting players, scouting players, and selecting a coach. But he's got a lot of defined tasks. It's called running the organization off of the field, right? Tell people what Chad Brinker's defined tasks are.
Yeah, so people get confused a lot about what the business side of Titans is versus the operational side of Titans. We're not saying that Brinker does Nihil's job. He's not out here doing the business CEO side of it. But the operation of football, of dealing with staff dynamics and dealing with salary cap dynamics and dealing with personnel departments, and there's just so many.
So my wife works for a hospital company, and people are like, "Oh, is she a nurse? Is she a doctor?" I'm like, how many? You know what a hospital is? A hospital is an entire full-scale restaurant. It is an entire full-scale laundromat. It is an entire full-scale tech, like IT department of like servers and technology. But I say all of that to say, like, you don't think about that when you think of a hospital, that you have to have like a massive restaurant infrastructure inside of a hospital to feed hundreds and hundreds of patients with very specific diets, right? An NFL team, and I would say almost all professional or college sports teams, they're a media organization. They have a 12-person media department that turns out videos, that creates content, that runs social accounts. Does any of that have to do with picking players in the draft and what's going on the field? Absolutely not. What about nutrition? They're a travel agency. They have to get hundreds of people to point A and point B every single week.
Yeah.
Like they have giant departments that do. How about maintenance of the field? How about equipment staff? Like, these are all people that have nothing to do with the outcome on the field of the players or what Mike Borgonzi chooses or does, that somebody has to do. Somebody has to run it all.
If the qualm is, why does the guy who oversees field maintenance and nutrition get veto over the football guy? I get that is something that can be frustrating, but let's not paint it as Brinker's background is in field maintenance and nutrition. He was specifically brought here to be the football analytics guy. Like, that is his background, is that he played football and he scouted football, and he also has the business acumen. Do you guys think he's good at his job? Clearly, you do not think he's good at his job. Clearly,
Adam does not.
Clearly, the broad populace of Titans fans think Borgonzi is very, very good at his job, and Brinker is very, very bad at his job.
That's
the only rhetorical question I will ask is, who hired Mike Borgonzi? If you guys think that Brinker is very, very bad at his job,
yeah,
and he's the guy who identified somebody who is very, very good at his job, what happened there?
Heard. All right, let's put that one to bed. I want to get into the trades, his explanation of the trades, and then I really enjoy the reported by a Boston outlet with close ties to the New England Patriots reporting, probably from one perspective, that the Titans refused to make deals with Mike Vrabel because he used to be their coach. We'll get into that in a second. But the trades in general, we can talk about creating a standard here, because that's really what we talk about with the Jarvis Brownless trade. I think he explained the McCreary trade, and I think he explained the Draymond Jones trade. I don't think it really was needed, but they saw value in giving up a player. It worked quite well. They got what they wanted. That is what it is. Like, and I actually let's hope he gets 2 more sacks and the Ravens make the playoffs. Like, I like that line from him, which is obviously what they're going to do. But the Jarvis Brownless thing, I don't think he gave as much detail or explanation as people think. But I also, and it's a little bit of two sides of his mouth, because he's like, no, we love this guy, but it wasn't going to work here. And so I understand leaving that explanation, wanting a little bit more, but I don't think you're going to get more out of that situation. I do think he explained very well what they believe their standard should be, which he says openly is hard to articulate, and you kind of just feel it, right? But team first, accountability, attention to detail. You want to work every day and try to get better, and sort of daily habits. A lot of that stuff is fairly standard stuff. It's not very. It doesn't sound super specific to the Titans have figured out that attention to detail works in the NFL, and no other team has figured that out. So what'd you make of his explanation of the Jarvis Brownlee trade? I thought it was as good as he could do.
Agreed.
But I don't. But it still leaves me going like, well, what actually was the problem with Jarvis Brownlee?
So I don't want to misquote here. So I'm going to say the actual part that struck me the strongest. And this is from Mike Borgonzi yesterday. I like Jarvis. I think he's going to be a really good player in this league. We don't have the culture right now sometimes to help guys develop right now. We thought at the time some of the habits weren't conducive to building the culture right now. So I think it's interesting that when we talk about that quote, people hear the he didn't have the habits conducive part and miss the real telling part, which is Borgonzi essentially saying, if we get this humming the way we want, 3-4 years from now, we can bring in a guy like that and he'll learn what to do. But we're not there yet.
I know. That's what his main point was.
And that's the interesting takeaway for me. Isn't that, oh, the Titans are never going to draft somebody who has a character question mark, or the Titans are only going to draft goody two-shoes players, or this or that. I think the takeaway is the admission that for all of the conversations that went on this offseason about culture and camaraderie and teamwork and bringing everybody together, there's an admission that it didn't amount to a hill of beans. Like, it just didn't work. Whatever it was, the culture that's supposed to bring people along didn't bring the guy along. And none of this is an admonition of Jarvis Brownlee. Like, it doesn't seem to me as much like Brinker or like Borgonzi was saying, this guy was never going to get it. And it sounded more like we couldn't make this guy get it. And that's on him and that's on us. And so again, not trying to talk the PR company line too much, but that was the part that stood out to me.
No, I agree with you. And it is a little bit of like, there is a little bit of like, look over here, how we're not doing it over here, so that I can kind of just not answer the question about like what I know what he's saying. And I think it is to the comments, people in the comments, what they're saying and what you're saying, which I don't know he can say anything else. I don't know if he can do much more without making it look petty, without making it look, like just kind of being a jerk about sending a player off and then bad mouthing him after he's out of the building, which we all kind of look at and go, oh, that doesn't feel good. But there has to be something there. There has to be something more than just like, because I think even in a period of time where the standard has not been set yet, it doesn't mean that a young player who might need to mature a little bit in all of this can't come along and help develop that standard, unless there's something majorly, concerning about that.
Sure.
And so again, there is a tiny bit of disconnect there. Do I personally think it's going to define the future of the Titans? Absolutely not. Do I think it's how we should evaluate Mike Borgonzi and doing his job moving forward? Probably not. Do I think he should have gotten more for Jarvis Brownlee? Probably. Do I wish it would have worked better and they could have found the blend of building a standard and creating a standard while also developing a player that might need to be developed from an attention to detail standpoint and blah, blah, blah. Like, if you think he's going to be a great player and you think he's going to be a good, talented piece and you really like the young man, then like something's missing. Something still is missing there.
So I want to say three things to clarify here. Thing one, the Titans lost the Jarvis Brownlee trade. Just like straight up, the Titans didn't get enough for him. We can all say not a good trade. Thing two, I think it is possible to hear somebody's perspective without endorsing it. I have a much deeper understanding of the perspective now than I did 4 weeks ago, 6 weeks ago. And I appreciate that I understand the perspective, even if I didn't necessarily agree with the rationale behind the perspective. And number 3, to you guys in the comments, Hill of Beans, that's Casablanca. Are we sitting here that's a very famous comp. That's
Jessica backed you up. Like
Okay.
it's your grandmammy's phrase.
That's a thing people say.
Absolutely. That's not he didn't just make that up. Chill Mode says, how Braden, if there is not guidance there to show him how to build the standard? Well, then you can't turn around and talk about the value of Cam Ward and Jeffery Simmons and say and Coach Wills, I think this is a point, and PK's been on this for a while. They looked at Sweat versus Brownlee for development and said DL wins championships. This was not a Sweat or Brownlee decision. They are not related at all in the decision to trade or not trade. My issue is, and I think PK has said this, and I agree with him, what is the difference behind closed doors in creating this standard between Tavondre Sweat and Jarvis Brownlee? And right now, from what I understand and from what PK has been digging on and what you've been, I don't know if there's a big difference here between not having someone to teach Sweat versus not having someone to teach Brownlee. Like, I don't think there's a big difference there in terms of what their actual, I don't want to say issues because that sounds weird, but like some of the things they need to work on to become the best versions of themselves in the NFL. And I don't think it's all that different. It's commitment, it's attention to detail, it's accountability, it's team first, it's all the same stuff.
Yeah,
according to Borgonzi. So I don't. It's just odd, and I agree. We can move on because I think he did the best job he could have done.
Yeah, you're not going to sit here and say here are the 3. You're not going to sit there at a press conference and say on September 7th this happened and it irked me, and then on September 9th this happened. Like, he's not going to pull out receipts and say something bad about a former player. Like, that's just not what people do in press conferences. And if you're expecting that sort of thing, you're expecting the wrong stuff. But I think he did a good job of outlining the stuff he expects. And you can read between the lines and say Brownlee probably wasn't doing that stuff.
If Brownlee met their standard, he'd be here. So something is going on from Eddie. I think that's probably a very succinct way to put it. Richard said 14 rookies all learning how to be professionals at the same time is a difficult task. This is more about leadership, both coaches and players. I tend to agree with that. Ed says maybe a reach here, but did you get the impression after the press conference that the new coach candidate would be asked to consider keeping Wilson on board as DC? I doubt that, and I don't know how many coaches would take the job with a sort of explicit you have to do this. I think most coaches would take the job saying, I'll consider it. Mm-hmm. I think that's how everybody, I'll look at the staff that's in place and I'll decide who I think should stay. You know, like, I think that's pretty normal. So yeah. And go ahead.
I was going to say to the rookie point that Richard brought up, that number is a little bit skewed. I believe 3 of the rookies are waiver claims that they picked up recently.
Sure.
It's still a high number of rookies, don't get me wrong. But when you're like, oh, we've got all these rookies like Drew Moss and Micah Robinson. Yeah, I mean, they've been here like 6 collective days. So there are a lot of rookies. But if we're talking about the contributive rookies, it's still really like 4 or 5 guys.
That just reminds me, we got to mention the safety. What was the kid from Seattle they went and got? The safety they signed off waivers today. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Why is his name?
Jarek? Was it Jarek? Something?
Yeah, Jarek Reed, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, that's right.
It's escaping me, but we'll see. More depth in the secondary is probably a good thing. Also, Denard Wilson, and I think PK wrote this. Like, the headline is like asking Denard Wilson to work with scraps. And that, look, they're not giving him a whole lot to work with here. Jeffery Simmons is injured. Snead is out, maybe gone off the roster permanently at the end of the year. Cedric Gray is doing a good job, which I think he kind of counts since he played like how many snaps last year? Like 10.
Yeah.
I think Cedric Gray kind of almost you could lump into this particular rookie class that Mike Borgonzi says he's very excited about. So we'll get to all of that. I want to address the rumors from New England. This is reported in a New England outlet, which is close to the New England Patriots, that the Titans refused to make a deal or would not communicate or make some form of like, we're not interested in making a deal because Mike Vrabel is the coach of the Patriots and we don't want to help them or have the perception. And it looks very petty, but it's also, you got to consider the source. This is coming from a New England outlet covering the Patriots with information inside the Patriots, getting this commentary from the Patriots. So I think we kind of just say, like, we have to know that that's where this information is coming from. Yeah. Now,
I before we get too far into it, I can independently report, as I'm sure you've seen other people independently report, that people within the Titans organization 100% deny that claim, that there was no unwillingness from the Titans to make trades with the Patriots. I can report that. Braden, go on.
Okay. I think that's good. That's important information. I also think that in the past, it is fair to say that there is a complicated relationship with Mike Vrabel and many people that were inside the building, namely Rand Carthon, Anthony Robinson, Chad Brinker, Burke Nihill, Bryce Wasserman, and Amy Adams-Strunk. Those 6 were the 6 that were above Mike Vrabel that made a decision to get rid of Mike Vrabel. Okay, so let's use some common sense here. 2 of them are no longer around, so Rand Carthon and Anthony Robinson can't be a part of this. The question you have to ask yourself is like, is it like I have on pretty good authority that they were obsessed with Mike Vrabel for a long time. That they were there. Where is he? What's he doing? We've got to prove ourselves. We've got to prove that this is the right decision, which also is very normal human instinct. We made a very difficult decision, and we would like to be right about that, right? Like that's every human wants to make the right decisions, right? Especially when it's this high profile of stuff. So kind of proving yourself right, I think, is something that is very understandable in the process. 4 of these people are still around. And the question is, if you are, in fact, walking through the halls of the Titans facility, seeing the ghost of Mike Vrabel, we got a problem. I don't know that. I don't know if that's still the case. I know that they were very concerned with Vrabel 12 to 18 months ago. Now, I don't know if that's still the case. I don't know what Mike Borgonzi is not a part of this, and he's the one making football decisions. So I don't know how much there is to it from like an interpersonal feeling standpoint. I think there's some logic to it, and I think it would be bad for the organization if people are still thinking about it. That's all. And I don't know for a fact if they are or are they not. So
it's inevitable to have feelings about an ex. Like
right.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
So I'm not going to.
You can't let it cloud your decision-making judgment, though.
Yeah, I'm not going to put anyone on blast for feeling a certain way about Mike Vrabel's success elsewhere, but I also am not going to believe that the Titans would make decisions to spite them at the harm of improving their own stature.
If Mike Vrabel and the Patriots offered the Tennessee Titans 3 first-round picks for Jeffery Simmons and they said no, we got a problem. we all none of us think that happened.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I agree. And Ed's point, Vrabel's success elsewhere doesn't necessarily mean the decision was wrong. I disagree with that. I think they should have kept Mike Vrabel. I personally, but I thought that at the time. So I'm not kind of trying to change my opinion over time. I think I said on this show when Zach was the co-host, I said, and this was like in the middle of the season when I started getting news and hearing reports from inside the building about the dysfunction. I said, guys, y'all got to be ready for Mike Vrabel to be the head coach of the New England Patriots. Like, just be prepared for it. And so I as long as it doesn't affect evaluating a trade opportunity or a free agent or any other decision accurately, feel whatever you want to feel. Who cares? I guess that's how I feel about it. And I don't think, again, there's enough reporting out there from you guys that say that wasn't the case. So,
yeah.
But don't tell me that emotion is not a factor. You know, we're all humans here. So, okay,
nothing to
good.
Add. Nothing to add.
All right, Sinkers Beverages for all your emotional needs. And if you want to eat your feelings, Shotgun Willie's Barbecue, almost a Michelin star restaurant. They made it onto the recommended list that came out this week. 3 restaurants got Michelin stars in Nashville for the first time. So congrats almost to Shotgun Willie's Barbecue. Sinkers Beverages, 5-time liquor store of the year. You can search Uber Eats and have the booze delivered directly to your house. So search Sinkers Beverages on Uber Eats. They also have a phenomenal staff that will take care of all of your wine needs if you're like me and don't know anything about it, but you want to go in and have a couple of nice bottles of wine for cheap in the house in case you need it. I did that on Halloween when I had my sister-in-law in, and I was like, oh, let's open this nice new red I got from Sinkers Beverages that they recommended for me. And she goes, oh, this is pretty good. And I said, that's right. And I took all the credit. Thank you, Sinkers. I did that.
Impressive.
So, yeah.
Very impressive.
I walked in and dropped $16 on a bottle of wine. They have an award-winning craft beer fridge, so you can get all kinds of great beer. And they have a THC corner with all kinds of cool stuff over there, gummies and beverages and extracts and mixes and shots and all kinds of cool stuff. So go check that out as well. There we go. ZD, need something from Sinkers to put me out until the draft. I don't think the THC is that strong. I don't think it's that strong. Okay. Do you want to get into the coaching stuff here, or did we cover that already? We covered that already.
Yeah, let's move forward.
Let's get into the cornerstone stuff here. How about the other trades, like keeping Jeffery Simmons? It's like Mike Borgonzi, rave reviews on Jeffery Simmons, a player that I think we noticed right away was physically different and even mentally a little different right away at camp. He has played differently, and they believe that he is, with Cam Ward, the two pieces that will set and create this new standard moving forward. You wrote a great story. Everybody go check it out, Tennessean.com. You can only technically have a single cornerstone, which I really appreciated you articulating in your story.
Yeah, no, there are two things that bug me when people talk about cornerstones, and one of them is buildings only have one cornerstone. So if you're using the phrase, you're using it wrong. And the second one is, if we're just using corner, like a corner piece, you need at least three to make a corner. You can't just have Jeff Simmons and Cam Ward. There's no corner there. That's a straight line. You can't have a corner with 2 points.
Peter Skoronsky? Question mark?
If you want to call him a cornerstone, that's your third point. But either way, I said this a couple of weeks ago on the show when we talked about the Jeffery Simmons trade possibility. And I brought up the idea of you need somebody you can point to who's had success in the locker room already. And the idea of comparing it to the Kevin Byard trade and how that kind of left the Titans in the lurch at the end of the Vrabel era without somebody in the locker room you could point to and say, that's the guy I'm trying to be like.
That's the standard.
And that, pretty similar to what Borgonzi said yesterday. I think there is some real meaning to, you want to be able to bring in a lot of young players, and you want them all to develop, and you want them all to reach the standard. But if there is no physical example of the standard, it is much harder to teach the standard. And so the value of Jeffery Simmons, beyond the fact that he is arguably the best interior defensive lineman in the National Football League. Arguably. Who else?
Yeah, he's definitely top 5. There's no question about
he's
that.
in competition with Chris Jones. He's in competition with some of the other guys.
Quinnen Williams, that just got traded, is about the same. But
yeah,
I would take Simmons over Williams.
Yeah. So in addition to that, he is the player that the Titans have deemed is worthy of pointing to and saying, be like that. Do what he's doing. The New York Jets did not feel a need to have that, it would appear. But the New York Jets also weren't as successful 4, 5, 6 years ago as the Titans were. So these guys that the Jets moved off of did not have were not part of team success the way that Jeffery Simmons and, to an extent, Amani Hooker were with this franchise. And that is the missing piece that the Titans have that the other bottom feeder organizations in the NFL don't have right now, is that they have players left who were on this team when this team was humming. And to keep that guy as the symbol of, he can tell you what it takes to win here, I think is what the Titans identified as, he is invaluable as a cornerstone rather than a guy who can fetch us 3 top 50 draft picks, which I bet he could have. And I would have had a hard time turning that down.
Oh, but if they got offered the Quinnen Williams trade, it would be hard. You should have taken it. But I agree with what you're saying. And that is, and I do think if you had to put somebody down, I think it is Skoronsky. But I agree with the point. Who says, Coach Will says, but Cam will need a Travis. Chill Mode says, I think Borgonzi feels that Cam Ward and Jeff Simmons are his Mahomes and Chris Jones. It's a very easy comparison. And Coach Will says, but Cam will need a Travis. I do think that they're going to have a top 10 pick, even if they trade back, and there are going to be receivers available, and they need to go get a Travis Kelce in a receiver's body and to play receiver, because Ridley's probably not back. And while I like DK and Helm and Io Manor, they're going to need a top flight number 1. Is this the draft to do it? I don't know. Do they get him in the second round? I don't know. But they are going to have to go get a number 1 receiver somehow in the next 2 drafts. So they are going to have to do that. But I agree that, and I was thinking, because I was looking at all these stats and all the things that Cam Ward needs to do to continue to make progress. And it's like, PK was tweeting it out, like he is by far the worst quarterback by almost 2 times in terms of expected play EPA with sacks and scrambles. His footwork is still a problem. He's got this weird hand thing where the ball slips out of his hand. He's got 5 fumbles. His eyes sometimes aren't doing what they need to do to kind of keep the backside linebacker. He got really lucky that he didn't throw an extra interception against the Chargers over the weekend because he didn't hold the linebacker with his eyes. So I'm not saying any of this means that he's a bad player. They shouldn't keep him. They shouldn't focus. He just has a lot of work to do. And as long as you're willing to be patient and let him become the piece, I think he has all the other stuff you need to be a quote-unquote cornerstone, which is the work ethic and the confidence and all the things that you and I and everybody else have talked about since the day they drafted him. And so I do find myself going, man, let's just give the kid a chance. Let's see what he can become. But by the start of next season with a new coaching staff and a new offensive staff coaching up these things, that you need to start to see progress pretty quickly next season. That's all. I don't think anything like this is all about learning under fire and just trying to kind of gradually improve some things that you see throughout the course of the next 8 games. But I think patience, and I look, I've been one that asked the question on this show with PK. I say, when can we have the conversation? Not because I want to or because I think we should, because I'm actually curious. Like, when do we actually think that it's okay to start saying, I wonder about this?
Yeah.
And I don't think it's until like midway through next season.
That's what I was about to say. Mid-October, early November of next year with a new regime. If he's not getting better, that's when you have the conversation.
Well, and Ed's right here. Borgonzi, one of my favorite lines from the entire Borgonzi press conference was, yeah, he's playing like a rookie quarterback on a team that was real bad. And I'm paraphrasing here. But that is what rational football analysts have said about Cam Ward. I think in the media, fans, nationally, locally, I think that's right. I think that's the right way to approach it.
That's a very specific number, Eddie. Please type more words to tell me why it's specifically 29 games.
29 games. You should know if he's the guy at 29. I would like to know what happens at 28 or what doesn't happen at 28 and then what happens at 30 so that you pick 29. I appreciate that.
Yeah, very specific.
I think this is already one of the best episodes of a football show of all time. Wow.
You got it. For people who are listening,
I like that.
That was a comment that Braden read. Braden's not just proclaiming that about himself.
Team Ramrod said that on the show. Eddie says it's about 1.5 seasons. That's all. Yeah, that's more than 1.5, I guess, right? But yeah, you're close. You're close. I do think that's about right. There needs to be tangible, visible growth with the new coaching staff, because otherwise, what was the point of changing?
Yeah,
like that's what you have to show us.
But also, to the point of cornerstone players, I was talking about this with PK yesterday, actually. Borgonzi mentioned that there were 3 or 4 guys who have been with the Chiefs since the beginning of the dynasty. I think he specifically said 4 guys, and I was trying to figure out who the hell is the 4th.
The 4th.
I know Mahomes, I know Kelsey, I know Chris Jones, and I'm like, Mike Pennell, maybe? Like, there are some guys that could be, and then
Harrison Butker.
Harrison Butker has been there the entire time. But the thing that I found interesting is Paul and I started talking about it, and the Chiefs about 5 years ago found a second cornerstone trio of acquiring Nick Bolton and Trent McDuffie and Creed Humphrey all at essentially the same time.
All drafted, right?
Yeah, all drafted, I think all of them second round or later. Was Nick Bolton a first round pick?
Well, Bolton was a second rounder.
So Bolton in the second round, Humphrey later, and then McDuffie was a first round pick.
Played college football like an hour down the road.
Yeah. So it's very interesting that the idea of building the cornerstone can be renewed. You have a cornerstone, you have a foundation, and then 5 years later, you build a new foundation,
second floor
that becomes foundational for a second dynasty. And I don't know, the idea that the Chiefs have all of this, there is an argument to be made. I believe Easton pointed this out to me. There's an argument to be made that the 4th player was Tyreek Hill. And then he hasn't been there the whole time. And around the time Tyreek left is when they had to go get these new foundational pieces.
That's
elsewhere.
fair. That's a fair argument. If he hadn't punched his pregnant girlfriend in the stomach, I'd say okay.
That predated it.
I'm not going to let that go. The guy's an asshole. But anyway.
But yeah, I think that when you're looking at the Titans and saying, oh, well, you need a Travis Kelce, or oh, you need a Tyreek Hill, or you need Trent McDuffie, or this or that. You need good football players. you need to go out. Like, I can't give the guy a shout out because I can't remember where I saw it from, but I saw a mock draft yesterday or 2 days ago where somebody had the Titans trading back from 2 to 6 or something like that, getting an extra first round pick and grabbing Jordan Tyson and Mansour Delane in the same first round.
Hmm.
And I'm like, yeah,
Those
that would turn a franchise around.
Those are good players.
That would be something that I would be interested in. And I don't care if it's the right position. I don't care if it's the right fit. Go get good players. Go get really good players and figure out how to use them.
The Rams have 2 first-round picks and probably a need to draft a quarterback. Their pick will be late, I assume, in the mid-20s. And then the other one, I can't remember who they got it from. The Falcons is going to be probably between 8 and 15 somewhere. So if you're okay moving back to 10 and then taking the other Rams pick, I think that is one of the better options they could have. And I think outside of Arvell Reese, who is now maybe the number 1 player in the draft, the Ohio State off-ball linebacker who's going to be turned into a pass rusher, could be a piece that the Titans want. Reuben Bain, Jordan Tyson. There's not a lot of elite talent in the top half of this draft relative to other drafts, and it's a little early to do this, but I think it's worth talking about. 2 key pieces, and maybe a second-round pick as well in the next draft. That is kind of how, and honestly, that's what Borgonzi and Brinker have told us is the strategy. Yeah. We need more top 100 picks.
And not to get people too excited, it's not just the Rams. The Jets have 2 first-round picks and need a quarterback. The Browns have 2 first-round picks and need a quarterback.
Well, but the Jets will be ahead of them picking probably.
I don't know. The Jets had to trade an awful lot of players to be as bad as the Titans. We will see.
Yeah. What's funny is but the Rams are the one that you like. They're the one that would have to give up 2 picks to come up and get the spot because they're probably too far away.
Yeah.
So,
but broadly, I would rather have a future first-round pick from a team that I think is going to be bad than a future first-round pick from a team I think is going to be good.
Death, taxes, and me wanting to trade back. That's where we're at on this.
It's not just Braden. It's the general manager of the Tennessee Titans.
Right. And the fact that I was asking a bunch of experts about next year. Like, people are like, if I'm trading Jeffery Simmons, I want picks in 2027. Everyone's already raving about the 2027 draft. Now, the problem is even the people I trust to do this, they still get over their skis on this stuff sometimes and get things wrong. I do think there is a healthy group of receivers that is really developed in college football through 2/3 of the season that are going to be available between, let's say, pick 10 and pick 40. There are going to be a lot of receivers taken in that range of the draft, and we can run down the list of all of them. And I think the Titans are going to get a pass rusher, a corner, and a receiver with their first 3 picks, and it has to happen probably all in the top 50. So that includes a trade back. So
yeah,
that's how you change the roster, though. Like, that's the only way to do it.
Yeah, you got to get a lot of good players.
Yeah,
go get them.
Yeah.
And somebody asked, does cornerstone depend on positional value? I tend to think so, but I also wouldn't say defensive tackle is a top 5 premium position, and it was cornerstone for the Chiefs for all these years, and it was cornerstone for the Rams for their Super Bowl. I wouldn't say tight end is a top 5 premium position. It was cornerstone for the Patriots, etc.
I think one has to be the quarterback, though.
I would agree.
That's why, like, the other 2 can be anything, but one has to be the quarterback.
Yeah,
probably. I think
I would agree.
Do you think the Titans could afford to trade twice in the first round and end up with 3 to 4 picks? Hell yes. Yeah, they can afford to add more good players. Yes, they can.
Yeah, it's a question of practically can you pull it off more than can they afford it.
Now, this is the boldest statement I've heard yet from Eddie. Depending on who you ask, there's like 4 future Hall of Famers in the 2027 draft, which is Cam Coleman at Auburn, Ryan Williams at Alabama, and most importantly, Jeremiah Smith at Ohio State. So, but you never know. You could find there's a lot of good receivers in this draft coming up. They're just all going to be, they're not like going to be graded as highly as Marvin Harrison or Calvin Johnson or Larry Fitzgerald. So
Jamar Chase.
Yeah, Jamar Chase. Exactly right. We'll see. All right. Sinkers Beverages, Shotgun Willie's Barbecue. Please support our great sponsors. They win awards. They're doing great work for the community. There's no reason why you guys can't go support those folks. They do really, really good stuff, and they're huge fans of the Titans and all Nashville sports. So go support them. All right. You want to talk a little college football quickly here?
Let's do it.
Is Auburn a good job?
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah. It's a good job.
Topic.
No,
do you want to see James Franklin as the head coach of the Auburn Tigers? Because I do.
I would prefer to see him at Virginia Tech, if I am being honest.
Why?
Because of his connections to the area. I think he could awaken a sleeping giant more so than just keep Auburn above water. But
that's true. It's also easier to win. His ability to get a team to 10 wins and then stop there is probably better at Virginia Tech in the ACC than it would be at Auburn, which would be harder to get to 10 wins every year. I do think he's a good coach. I think he's Mark Richt without the religion. I think he's a pretty good coach. He'll get to pretty good classes and he'll recruit pretty well, and the team will be good, and they'll be a 9-10 win team every year. But I don't think they win a championship with James Franklin. But that's good. John Summerall will be the head coach. So.
It's the old joke people would tell when I was in Oxford all the time of, if you win 9 games a year at Alabama, you get fired after 5. If you win 9 games a year in Oxford, they build you a statue. Like, expectations are different at different places. If you can win 10 games a year in Blacksburg, lifetime contract.
Yeah, for sure. Eddie says, with Pat Fitzgerald news, do you think he's back in the search for a job? I already thought he was back before any of the news came out from a settlement about some of the player stuff. Pat Fitzgerald strikes me as a perfect fit at UCLA or a place like Kentucky. If they were to decide to move on from Mark Stoops, I think he would do an excellent job at those
basketball
places.
Schools. You think he'd be good at basketball schools?
I'm just saying, those are good jobs. I think he'd do a good job at Arkansas.
Basketball school.
It's a different sort of like type of, to coach at Northwestern is very different than to coach at Arkansas. There's just different. The dynamics are very different. I am curious if Brian Callahan is a factor at UCLA, just out of pure interest standpoint. I don't think he wants to coach anywhere near college football, but we'll see. I think Auburn is clearly the 4th job behind LSU, Penn State, and Florida. But I also don't think that all the drama, like the governor of Louisiana and the Auburn chaos, I actually don't think any of that stuff matters unless you're like Nick Saban and you're thinking about coming back. Like, if you're Nick Saban, you can be real picky and you can be real choosy. But otherwise, Auburn, LSU, Florida, Penn State, the right guy goes in there, you're going to win big, and you're going to be very competitive. They've got all the resources you need to be very, very good. All right,
you guys, by the way, want to pick at the who's in charge problem with the Titans, don't be LSU fans.
Well, we know.
Really, are you the acting athletic director? Are you the interim athletic director? Are you the acting interim? Are you the interim acting?
Has the athletic director ever not reported to the governor of the state of Louisiana in 100 years of playing college football? Probably not. Has every governor tried to meddle in the football at Louisiana State University? Yes,
every man a king.
But
every man a king.
But it's part. I just think it's part of, like, everyone knows it's baked in. Like, Louisiana politics are weird and corrupt and odd, and the culture is weird and fun and awesome. And, like, I just think people know that when they take the job. Same thing with Auburn. And you can be very successful at those places. So, all right. So here's the thing. There are 4 teams in the playoff, all ranked right now in the SEC. From 3 to 6, which is A&M 3, Bama 4. And honestly, when somebody asked about this is where I was going to go with this, and I forgot to bring it up. Somebody had a comment about having to play. Chill Mode says, what about Drew Brees saying that a quarterback needs 50 quality starts, college and NFL? A lot of people talk a lot about in the draft process. I think Callahan talked about it a lot. Like, playing a lot of football is very beneficial, obviously.
Yeah, I would agree.
However, when I talked to a scout about Ty Simpson, and I think James Foster said this as well on Hot Read podcast coming out later today, which is Ty Simpson is like the most polished quarterback prospect people have seen with only like 9 college starts. Like, his footwork, all the things we want Cam Ward to do, which is eye movement, pocket presence, footwork, climbing the pocket to plant and throw. Like, all that stuff, he does better than anybody with 9 college starts has ever done, according to scouts.
And when we talk about this stat, let's please not conflate a false contrapositive or whatever the phrase is. There is a difference between you need 50 starts to be good, and if you start 50 games, you will be good. Those are 2 completely different things. If you look at the list of people who have started the most games in the history of college football, you are going to get a lot of players like Colt McCoy and Kellen Moore, who were very good college football players.
Kevin Cobb,
who did not translate as great NFL players. And in the modern era, people like Dylan Gabriel, people like Bo Nix. Bo Nix is pretty good right now, I guess.
Bo Nix pretty good.
Pretty good. But yeah, there is a difference between played a lot of college football, therefore you will be good, versus if you played a lot of college football, that's the first tier to meet.
Yeah. And so the reason that struck me is that I think Bama, of all the teams, Bama, you could argue, has the best resume. They have the most good wins. They have the best sort of like set of data for folks. They also have the worst loss of A&M at 3, Bama at 4, Georgia at 5, and Ole Miss at 6. I think those 4 are largely in. If you look at Ole Miss's schedule, it's basically a road trip to Mississippi State, and that's what they've got left. I think Vanderbilt, Texas, and Oklahoma were 11 and 12. They were just on the outside, looking in because of the ACC and the Group of 5 being worse this year than maybe last year. So I don't know if Texas and Georgia are going to play in a couple of weeks. That's probably an elimination game. Like, I think it's going to work itself out. How many do you think Vandy can get in? Like, how many teams do you see having a path to getting into the playoff in the SEC?
Oh, still with a path? I think it's 7.
Well, I just mean, like, you think that they will complete the path?
Oh,
I guess maybe is a better question.
4.5 is the over under, and it's going to be a toss up on if Texas can be the 5th. Like, if Vanderbilt
schedule's too hard.
If Oklahoma wins out, they're in. But it's just, man, that is a gauntlet. I would say that right now Texas, obviously because the head-to-head advantage, has the notch over Vanderbilt. But like, I've been thinking about this a lot the last couple of days since the rankings came out, and I've been thinking about this a heck of a lot because I have this argument with my dad every single week about college football. This is not a geek corner. This is I was a raging geek in high school corner.
Oh, subtle difference. Yeah.
If I came home with a report card and I showed my parents a report card that had a 91 on it, my dad would usually look at it and go, "Huh, that's awfully close to a B." And if it had a 97 or a 98,
so passive aggressive.
If it's a 97 or a 98, we celebrate. If it's a 91, that's awfully close to a B. When I look at the University of Georgia with a 3-point win in overtime over Tennessee and with a 4-point win over Florida.
Yeah.
When I look at Texas A&M with a 3-point win over Arkansas and a 6-point win over Auburn.
I mean, Texas. Look at Texas.
When I look at Texas
Yeah.
barely beating Mississippi State, when I look at Texas with all these,
Yeah.
That's awfully close to losing, isn't it? I don't care what your strength of schedule is. That's a lot of times you almost lost. And I'm not trying to sit here and be like, oh, strength of schedule doesn't matter. But I think strength of schedule has become the most overrated metric that we look at in college football. And strength of record might be even worse because it's just strength of schedule multiplied by how many games you won, which that's just called watching sports. We don't need that as a stat. We understand how strength of record works. All of this adds up. If you have a 3-point win over the number 20 team in the country, as Georgia does with Tennessee, or if you have a 35-point win over the number 40 team in the country, as Ohio State does with, let's say, Illinois.
All of them.
I'm going to be more impressed by the time you trounced the 40th best team than by the time you almost lost.
Oh, I don't think A&M has a case to be 1 or 2.
And for all of this strength of schedule manipulation and strength of record manipulation. Oh, A&M's got the greatest strength of record in the SEC, in all of college football, all of this. They do, statistically. Who are the 5 SEC teams that Texas A&M's beat? Do you know this off the top of your head?
They beat LSU. They beat Arkansas gave up 40 points to Arkansas. They beat Auburn. They beat Mississippi State. And they beat, who am I forgetting?
You're forgetting Florida.
Florida, that's right.
To recap, they've beaten 5 SEC teams. 4 of them have already fired their coach, and 1 of them is Mississippi State. Woohoo! Best.
But I don't. But what's interesting is I don't think there's many teams in America that can win all 5 of those games. I'm not suggesting that those are great teams, but that
is not to suggest that Texas A&M's bad. But
right,
when we're looking at strength of schedule, when we're like, oh, look at the gauntlet these SEC teams have gone through, there is a difference between the gauntlet Alabama has gone through,
right,
and the gauntlet that A&M has gone through. And to sit here and say, oh man, A&M has all these hard-fought wins against Auburn and Arkansas, but let's demean Indiana for having to play Iowa and Illinois. Those are roughly equivalent games, guys.
I would rank.
Equal.
I think Alabama is the only one that has the case to be number 1 or 2. And honestly, I don't. I think there are 3. And I don't mean to demean your entire point here, but if your argument is Alabama is probably better than Texas A&M. And that strength of schedule is not all that important. hard agree. Now let's get to what's really fun about this, which is the path.
Yeah.
And what's fun about this is that we don't have to have all these arguments. Chill Mode says, to me, Texas doesn't belong. That's fine. That's totally your opinion, and you might be completely right. But you know what's really cool about this? We're going to find out.
Yeah.
Because Texas is going to play at Georgia and Arkansas and then A&M. They're going to play 2 of the 4 teams that are in the top 5. That they have to play 2 of them. And so if they beat those teams, then you're wrong. They belong in. If they lose to those teams, then you're right. They belong out. And we're going to find out. Vandy has a nice path. If they beat Auburn and Kentucky at home, they have to go to Tennessee to win to probably get into the playoff. And if you go to Tennessee and you win to beat a rival that hates you dearly and really, really would hate if you beat them to make the playoff, which is just so delicious, just the game itself meaning that much, then they will earn their way in. If Texas A&M runs the table, beats Missouri, South Carolina, and Texas, then they might deserve to be number 1. But we'll find out. I think Ole Miss is the only one that's sort of like, just don't screw it up and you're in, because they play Citadel, Florida at home and then at Mississippi State. Even then, a road loss in the Egg Bowl to a much improved Mississippi State team probably doesn't knock you out in theory. I hope the committee knows how crazy that game is and what it means to people. I think Georgia and Texas are going to play probably an elimination game, as I mentioned. If Texas does win that game, Georgia could still beat Georgia Tech and Mississippi State and Charlotte and be 10-2 and maybe get in too. So like, there's still lots of paths here. I don't think there's a path like Oklahoma has to play Alabama, Missouri, and LSU. I don't know. I don't know if they can do that.
The
Tennessee's out, and I don't think Missouri can get in either, even though Missouri has only 2 losses.
The one thing that will get really interesting is if we are reaching a point where making the SEC championship game can't be held against you, or if it can. Because if we have like 4 one-loss SEC teams and one of them ends up losing the SEC championship game, and that hurts them or disqualifies them because of strength in other leagues and strength across the country, then we're going to have to examine what all this actually means.
I have hope for that because number 1, we have an example of it last year not costing SMU.
Right.
So we have an example of that. And number 2, I think it's pretty common sense, and I think the committee has voiced this, maybe not directly, but I think it's pretty clear that if you are too good in the regular season, you can't be penalized for being too good in the regular season. Like if you're the one that's so good you got to the championship game and the other teams didn't, you can't be penalized for that. So I don't now if you get beat by 50, maybe we can talk about that meaning something, but I really don't think that any team in any conference, I would say this about any team in any league, unless you're like 8-4 and you get into the ACC championship game or something on some fluky situation. If you are a 2-loss team or better and you play in the conference championship game because you're so good that you are one of the best 2 teams in your league, and then you play a decent football game, I don't think it should be held against you, nor do I think the committee's going to do that.
What if hypothetically Georgia makes the SEC championship game but has a loss to Georgia Tech? So they're at 10-2 and they lose it to go 10-3, so they lost back-to-back games to end the year. Are they still automatically in?
I don't think it's automatic, but I think they should be. What about you?
I think it's really hard to put a team in the playoff if they lost their last 2 games.
What if your hardest games are at the end?
I'm just saying, if you have losses to, in this situation, it would be Alabama, Georgia Tech, and Texas A&M, let's say. If you have those 3 losses with wins over Texas and Ole Miss.
And all 3 of those teams are in the playoff, because if that happens, all 3 of those teams are in the playoff.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's really tough. It's really, really tough because what do you do? What do you do with a team that we clearly have some value on how you're playing late? That has clearly factored into the committee multiple times.
How does Virginia lose to NC State and it's not a conference loss? Because it wasn't a conference game, I don't believe. And neither was, by the way, I think Kansas State lost to Arizona early in the season, and that was not a Big 12 game. Sometimes you schedule non-conference games with teams that are in your conference. It's rare, but it happens in the ACC more than it happens elsewhere.
Specifically in the ACC, since they've expanded, there are some rivalries that are trying to be preserved in years that they're not scheduled by the conference. So I know that's happened with like UNC versus NC State a couple of times.
Wake Forest and North Carolina, I think, played in some non-conference games recently. So it just is what it is. I do think the answer to your question really, though, is like what else happens? Because I do think the committee, I don't think there's a path for a 9-3 team to get in, meaning 3 regular season losses. And that there's teams that are barely, I mean, Oklahoma's close to that. Texas is close to that. Tennessee's already there. Missouri, I think, is going to get to 3. Like, I don't think 9-3 regular season record gets you in. And it's not, the problem is I still think, Texas, for example, I still think is better than BYU or even Texas Tech for that matter, certainly better than the ACC champ, but they're going to get in. So it's not always perfect. It's not always fair, but it is what it is. We saw 3 lost teams that were probably better than SMU get left out because SMU's regular season was awesome. So, I just think you're kind of asking a bunch of humans to do a human thing and then asking them to be perfect, and that's not really possible. So
what Braden is saying here is bring back the computers. All hail
no,
WCS.
No, it's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is I'm cool with imperfections.
I know.
My this is a true story. So in the Queen City Classic, the soccer tournament that ends the season in Clarksville over the weekend, my oldest daughter's team made it to the championship game after playing in the freezing rain on Saturday night. I was very proud of them. They made it to their championship game. They won 1-0. My youngest daughter makes it to the championship game in her age group, and they give up 3 goals to go down 3-2. And the third one, she was clearly offsides. And it was a teaching moment where, I'm not trying to like give my kids an excuse for something, but I'm trying to show them like, hey, yeah, that probably was a bad call, but referees are human and human beings are part of sports, and human element and human error and human imperfection is a part of it all. It's sort of what makes sports fun and to some degree and frustrating and also awesome. And sometimes you get the calls and sometimes you don't. Generally speaking, and I don't think that fans should ever look at referees and blame them for things. I know that there's this weird Ken Williamson situation in the SEC this year that seems to be an exception to this rule, but referees don't cost your team a game.
Yeah,
they don't.
Or if you want to make the geek conclusion like I have instead of the humanist conclusion like you have, errors are going to happen. Variance is going to happen. That is why instead of picking teams that make the postseason based off of win-loss record, we should pick teams that make the postseason based off of point differential, which is a lot less variance implicated than win-loss record is. How much you beat people by is more impressive than whether or not you won. Going back to the almost a B version of this conversation, if you win by a lot, there probably wasn't very much variance that happened that caused that.
Yeah. So Florida State 2013 played one of the weakest schedules of any team that's ever made it in the championship game. And everyone's like, I don't know about this team. Do they deserve to be there? They won every game by an average of 42 points.
Yeah.
And when you are that dominant, you're pretty good at football.
Yeah. People will come up sometimes of, who would win in a playoff between the 4 best teams of the college football playoff era? And they bring up 2019 LSU, and they bring up 2020 Alabama, and they bring up 2021 Georgia and some of these teams. 2018 Clemson deserves to be in this conversation because they just went out and beat everybody they played by 50, including Alabama in the national championship.
Yeah, they were pretty good. Is that Trevor Lawrence's freshman year?
Yeah, Trevor Lawrence's freshman year, the year that their defensive line had 4 top 10 picks.
Yeah.
I win by a lot.
Is that Dexter Lawrence, Christian Wilkins,
Cleveland Farrell,
and then one other one. Who am I missing?
I don't know if the last one was a top 10 pick now that I think about it, but they had a 4th dude.
Like a Bryant or a Westbrook or something. I can't remember. Anyway. All right. Well, thank you guys for hanging out. Thank you guys for spending some time with us on a bye week. You don't have to watch Titans this weekend.
It's great.
Cool. It's pretty cool. What do you do on your off week, Nick? Do you just like hang around and watch football?
I'm going to sit in silence. I'm going to turn off the lights and watch some like I Love Lucy reruns or something. It's going to be awesome.
All right. Thanks to all you guys in the comments. You guys are awesome and great and wonderful. Enjoy some college football over the weekend. And please rate, review, and subscribe to all the great shows across the 440 Sports Network. I may have a new product announcement coming up next week. Little documentary I've been working on, so stay tuned for that. That's going to be cool. Looking forward to that about Nashville and about beer. So Sinkers Beverages. And have a great weekend, everybody. For Nick, I'm Braden. Tennessean.com. I forgot about that as well. So make sure you check out Nick's work there. Thank you for listening. We will talk to you next time.